I'm going to give you the Chicago Bulls' biggest strengths and weaknesses heading into this season as we are finally getting ready for the Bulls' first full practice. And it starts right now. Now, if you are new to the channel, please like the video. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Bulls. Our Bulls talk, so make sure you get in tune with us, man. We're continuing our tour of Vegas. But before I head in to work to do a little bit of a technical directing, I'm going to be breaking down what I feel like the Bulls' biggest strengths and weaknesses are heading into this season, especially after yesterday's media day, right? And let's start it off, right? I like to start off on the positive. I'm a positive kind of guy, especially when it comes to my team. So I like to look at things from the glass half full kind of perspective at times, right? A lot of glass half empty fans out there. That's okay. We all still fan of how we fan. Um, First thing for me, right? I think when you look at the Chicago Bulls team and the structure of this team, the one thing that you know this Bulls team is going to be able to do is get to the bucket. And that is a good thing to me. And I also want to see a little bit of change with how Billy Donovan, and we heard Vooch yesterday talking about it, right? But how Billy Donovan is going to be using Vooch and using the players in this system, right? But I really see a team when healthy, right? Zach LaVine, ability to get to the bucket. DeMar DeRozan, ability to get to the bucket. Hopefully Patrick Williams having some improvement there, but Alex Caruso off of the bench, ability to get to the bucket, right? Like you see a lot of those guys that have that ability to get downhill, put their head down. I think that's going to be a real asset for the Bulls because it's going to give them the opportunity to get downhill, kick out to hopefully an open shooter who's going to be able to knock down the shot and to be able to knock that shot down. It creates such a dynamic in your offensive game that the defenses can't figure out where to stop you. And I think that's one thing that the Bulls really had as an advantage, even in that Milwaukee series last year, because they basically just said, we're going to sell out to you, but they weren't able to knock down the three ball. And I think that brings us to our first weakness, right? Like when you look at this Bulls team, time after time after time trying to knock down the three ball last season, you have to ask yourself the question, did we get exponentially better shooting the three ball this season? That's probably the one thing this offseason that, not to say the Bulls didn't address, but that I think you probably look at and say, okay, well, you brought in Goran Dragic. Hopefully Dalen Terry can add something to your team, but you brought in Goran Dragic to improve your three-point shooting. Not to say that Goran's not an improvement, right? He shoots about 40% across all three-point shooting splits, but I think it's one of those things where, to me, right, if I'm looking at the player that I want to see on the floor knocking down shots and different things like that, right? Like you're really hoping that Lonzo comes back. You're really betting on that continuity like AK talked about yesterday, right? Because Lonzo was your best three-point shooter on the team outside of Zach LaVine. Again, DeMar DeRozan talked about taking more of them and being more proficient with them, right? But that's something that, right, we haven't seen DeMar do his entire career. If all of a sudden DeMar comes out this season and he's like, okay, I'm going to start draining threes just because we need me to, then it'd be great, right? But again, I said this yesterday on the live stream. By the way, make sure you guys check out the podcast yesterday. Dropped an hour yesterday breaking down Bulls, breaking down Bears. Make sure you guys get in tune with that. I said this yesterday, right? When I watch the Chicago Bulls team and I look at basically assessing what's on the court, I have more questions than answers. And I think that that's the part that coming into the season with a lot of the weaknesses the Bulls have, there's still question marks there, right? Like, I'll say one answer that you got and one strength that it was definitely a weakness for the Chicago Bulls that I see coming into this season is I think you have a few legitimate big men that you can rely on to, at a minimum, right, make sure that the paint is not just being dominated by the other team. There were so many Bulls games last season that were just dominated by the other team, or by Cleveland, by Milwaukee, by name the team, right, where you're just looking down and you're like, man, can we get a rebound ever? I think that'll actually be a strength of this Bulls team this season, especially if the Bulls do go to, right, keeping Vooch maybe down in the paint a little bit more. I would love to see them hold on to him, keeping him down in the paint a little bit more this season. But I think that at the end of the day, right, when I look at where this team is, you brought in Andre Drummond. That's a Hall of Fame level rebounder, right? Like that doesn't change it. That's a Hall of Fame level rebounder. Not to say he's going to make the Hall of Fame just for rebounding, but how he does it is at a Hall of Fame level. But I think that, right, you look at that and then you say, okay, now we're adding that to Vooch, who was already a really, really good rebounder. Then you take that and you add that into the fact that hopefully Marco is going to give you some time at that possibly 4 position, right? Including him with Patrick Williams. Like, there's a lot of things that I look at with this Bulls team that really get me feeling like, okay, down low is not going to be a big issue for us anymore. Down low is not going to be a problem for us anymore. Down low, we're going to look at this team and we're going to say, okay, Vooch is going to be able to not only grab the rebound down low, but also be able to finish down low. Andre Drummond's going to have an ability to get that ball, finish down low, and be able to kick it back out. You know, I think there's a lot of things on the rebounding side that are really a positive for me with this team. And so that's the part that intrigues me the most. Before I continue with the video, I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well, especially throughout the day today. It's going to be a scorcher. So, y'all tune in with me. But always, as always, man, you know, continue watching the videos, drop a like, all that good stuff. And let me know how you guys feel, man, because I want to know how you guys are feeling about this Bulls team. What are their biggest strengths and weaknesses heading into this season? One thing that I will say I am a little bit concerned with as a weakness is that point of attack on the defense. When we're talking about perimeter defenders, right? I think that that's one thing that I look at with this Bulls team where I say, okay, if we're going to be able to compete, we have to be able to attack people as they're coming up the court. And I think Io has an ability to do that, right? I think Io's a guy that can come out and can do that on a consistent basis. But when you start to get into that bench unit, that's where I'm like, okay, who's going to be the guy that's going to have that consistent defense? Is it going to be Javonte Green? He could be out there, but I don't know if he's going to get the minutes because you might need some more offense off of the bench. Is it going to be Dalen Terry? Is he all of a sudden going to get a ton of run there? Is it going to be Io DeSumo? Or I'm sorry, is it going to be Alice Caruso, right? Like, I look at this Bulls defense, not to say that I think it's going to be poor, but I want to see that point of attack, right? Very much so like we saw, especially in the playoffs last year where they were allowing a lot more contact. I think that's something as a Bulls fan you really have to look at and say, okay, if we're going to be able to dominate, right? I look at the playoffs last year with Brooklyn. I look at versus Boston and say, how did they attack KD? It was at the point of attack. He's coming across half court. Boom, we're into his chest. We're playing hard defense. We're causing turnovers. We're going the other way. We're getting finishes the other way. Those are the things that I really look at this season with the Chicago Bulls and say, those are the things that I really want to see the Chicago Bulls step up in. And I think not having Lonzo is a bigger loss in that effort than you might think, right? Like, Lonzo was such a key piece in being able to meet people on that point of attack. He was such a key piece on being able to step up, attack there, and also be able to switch off, go to another guy, and keep that rotation of defense coming through, right? I think that not having Lonzo, not to say that Caruso and Io can't do those things, and I think they both do those things well, but it's a little bit different when you've got the 6'6" guy with the with the massive wingspan. You know what I mean? That's like fleet of foot with it, can guard 1 through 5. Like, I will say that's something that coming into this season I think is just a little bit more of a weakness for the Chicago Bulls here, but it's not to say that that's going to be a weakness all season, right? Like, if we get Lonzo back, all of a sudden it's a completely different game. It's a game-changing kind of play, you know what I mean? That's a season-changing kind of play, I should say, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to, hopefully seeing the Chicago Bulls get back as well. And I think, right, like, let's break down one more strength before we get up out of here, man. I do appreciate you guys for tuning in. Sorry for all the mess in the background. That was my my very interesting roommate for the week. Take that for what you will. The final strength that I really see this Bulls team having coming into this season, right, is the ability in the fourth quarter to have multiple options that can close out the game for you. If this Chicago Bulls team is healthy, you not only have one, you not only have two, But if you really want to use them, and I'm looking at you, Billy Donovan, because this is something that I've talked about, Hayes has talked about, half the city has talked about, right? If you're really going to use them, you got Vooch as well. When his hand was hot and he was being that unstoppable player, we would go away from him so often last season. We would try to get him out there shooting threes, stretching the floor. No, 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 no. Get that man down low. You've got options in the fourth quarter where you look at and you say, hey, this guy can go out there and close the game. By the way, he's done it before. You know what I'm saying? Like the offense, offensively at least, you've got so many options where now you're looking at, okay, maybe they're going to go Zach LaVine here. Maybe they're going to go DeMar DeRozan here. We can pick either. We can go half and half. We can go thirds if you want us to, right? The Bulls on the offensive side of the basketball, I think, are going to be a much better basketball team this season. Now, again, right, it's barring health, right? Or barring injuries, I should say. If they're a hurt, injured team, it's not going to go as we planned anyway, right? And I think that's the thing, right, that you look at this season. But on top of all of that, right, like their ability to finish out a game, their ability to close out a game, I think just the experience that the Bulls got last season, I think that's going to add so much to this team this season. Because to me, right, if you're talking about the experience that the Bulls got last season, now all of a sudden I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, okay, well, how do you adjust to being the hunted this season and or the hunter this season, depending on where you're seated? How do you adjust to teams playing you differently? How do you adjust to maybe the three balls not falling? We got to get something inside, right? Like, I think the fact that the Bulls went through so much turmoil last season and you brought back all of those players that went through that same adversity into this season, that's going to be huge heading into next season. And or heading into this coming season, I should say. And I'm talking like it's so far away, bro. Like, it's literally first preseason game is October 4th, so I'm mad excited. But I just think that, right, you look at all of those things, and to me, you're talking about a team that's quickly coming together, moving in the right direction, and all of a sudden, right, like all the things that were issues last season, everybody that went through them is still here. Can you improve upon them heading into this season? Those are my takes for today, man. Those are my strengths and weaknesses that this Bulls team could experience. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. I'll be down to talk with you as well. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. Now I got to go bake in the Vegas sun. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Peace.